Welcome to the Bold Life Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Rich, and each week I bring you inspiring stories from real people to help you live a more passionate and intentional life. You'll learn how to up-level in everything from relationships, entrepreneurship and leadership, to spirituality, sexuality, and yes, even money. If you're interested in raising your game to be a better business owner, a better lover, and a happier, more fulfilled human, then you're in the right place. No more living on autopilot. You are just an episode away from a bolder, better, more fulfilling life. Welcome to episode number 63 of the Bold Life Movement Podcast. Today's episode is with videographer and founder of the Jumpstarters experience, Michael Gebben.
Well, I think there's a mutual person that you, if I'm connecting the dots correctly on your certification through Mr. Brendan Bouchard.
Yes.
I met him backstage for 30 seconds when I was filming Yannick Silver's underground online seminar back in 2012. Zero contact between then and present. And I got an email and I thought, well, this has got to be some kind of like blast email to his entire audience to try to find some videographers. And it was actually it was a personal email to me. And he said that he reached out because I filmed for Tony Robbins back in 2012 and he loved that video that we did. And he said, who did that? And then Tony told him, and he said he's kept me in his Rolodex since 2012. And I was like, what the heck? Because I've never had any other, zero contact between that backstage thing and like 3 or 4 months ago.
That is so fun. He's doing really well. So that's a person that you want to have your number.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was crazy to say the least.
Yeah. Were you filming in Portland?
I was actually, so what I did, I flew into New Orleans and he had a Beachbody speaking engagement with like 20,000 people. So I filmed behind the scenes of that. And then, like I said, this is like Success Live Event, I think it's called, just as simple as that. And that's in Long Beach on Friday, Saturday. So we're filming on Saturday. But yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, that person, the Tony, or not Tony Robbins, but Richard Branson, they were one of the few that I just randomly got connected to. But like Tony and Tim Ferriss, like I reached out to them actually.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I saw on your bio and on your site that you had been able to work with people like Tony and Tim, and I'm on like a first name basis with them apparently, Tony Robbins and Tim Ferriss and Richard Branson. And so it sounds like that was as their videographer, and that is the core of your business. Will you give me a little bit of background?
Well, so it's interesting. So I actually started in video production. Video production is where I actually found, I found this photo of my dad of the epitome of what a wedding videographer people thought was, which was the shoulder camera walking around, and you see like there's like 3 different shots of these photos of me at my birthday. My birthday was actually yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Everybody's listening. It was September 4th. So whatever they listen. But my mom was showing me some of these photos, and there's like 3 or 4 different sequences of shots of me, but every one of them's a different angle. But my dad's like in the background with this big shoulder, VHS camera. So he was always filming, but actually he works at a cemetery as well. And so my first thing in I guess business, I tried all sorts of things. I had a candy machine business in high school. I had a paper route, all sorts of random stuff. But I did.
You're like an old school entrepreneur.
What's that?
I said you're an old school entrepreneur.
That's right. That's right. So I actually did photo slideshows for funeral homes my junior year in high school. And then so people passed away, gave me photos, I scanned them in, and I made a slideshow. And then I filmed some other things for my high school. And then actually my good friend who was in these movies we used to make, his neighbors were getting married, and they essentially said, hey, can Patrick, which was my friend, film our wedding? Mm-hmm. And again, this happened a lot in the early days, which was people had a very low, like it was the guy with the shoulder cam, which is why I brought that up. And so basically they asked if he could do it, but he didn't do the filming, I did. And so they said, well, Michael does it. So I did my very first wedding, like right after I graduated in 2006. And I told my parents, just give me 1 year and see where this all goes. Because I made
Yeah.
like 4,000 my junior year. I made like 8,000 my senior year. And I was like, well, if I can make $16,000, this would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to go to college. And I went down that path. I filmed tons of weddings. And my company was called Gebb's Total Video. So we filmed anything and everything that I could point a camera at, along with doing the tape transfers, VHS, film to DVD, the photo slideshows. I mean, we did it all. And then it was in 2010 that I actually was really overwhelmed and kind of overworked and stressed out. I was like 9 months behind delivering people's wedding videos to them. And I was honestly about, good old, I was about to give up and I came, whatever. But
yeah, I wanted to know your transition moment, so I'm glad that you're sharing it.
Absolutely. And so, I was just, I didn't even want to go to the movies. I thought a couple would like see me at the movie theater and be chewing me out because like, why don't we have our DVD yet? But I did this one specific thing that I found from a guy in the Philippines who was doing. I did my first one in 2006. It was called the Same Day Edit. And so I shot that day and I showed the video that night at a couple's wedding reception. And that's really what put me on the map for video. And in that same time, so a lot of the people had their same day edit, but they didn't have any of these other 9 or 10 videos that I had promised them. And so I actually read a site or blog, Zen Habits, and then I found a guest post from Tim Ferriss, and I read his book. And on certain levels, the rest is history. But that really was a monumental moment. That book brought out the inner entrepreneur inside of me again, while simultaneously some things had started to happen where I just got this bug. I mean, what you see on this podcast, and if people dig around and whatever else online, like what you see of this side of me was not even in my radar in any capacity. It wasn't a passion. It wasn't a love. It wasn't a desire. It was not something I wanted to do. Sometimes people say follow your passion, but this was such video, I wouldn't say was as accidental, but it was, even because I still in my senior year thought I might go to college for kinesiology and be a personal trainer for Bally Total Fitness. So I was still all over the map, and then it just
same.
Yeah, so it's I had a few things that did fall in place. Now video, I think, I wasn't the purebred, I love filmmaking. Oh my gosh, I've been running a camera since I was 6. It was, as I look back, it was more my dad, and I kind of fell into it, and then I made some money with it, and it just became this natural thing that just kind of worked.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was ingrained in my DNA as much as kind of entrepreneurialism, was, or as I find out from other people. I've always been a talker. But not publicly. I would have a heart attack to get in front of my class, at school. If I had a history report and I had to get up in front of the class, I'd do everything in my power to avoid that.
So take me back a step. I want to connect the dots between the early days of filming people's weddings to somehow filming professional Tony Robbins grade videos for people like him and Brendon Burchard.
So, what's interesting is I don't believe, and I think when it comes down to pricing and what we charge and the people we're working with and all these things, in the very beginning, you're going to typically, if you get into something new, you're not going to be very good at it.
Right.
And what I found when it comes to working with people like Tony Robbins and Richard Branson and Lewis Howes and Brendon Burchard and all these people is, and this doesn't just apply to coaching or training or video production or photography, it applies to doing business with someone that you're the person having to get the business. And there's a level of certainty and confidence that you have to have, and belief in yourself, belief in your work. And I think it took me from 2005 through 2010 to build up that confidence. I never had any major role models or influences or things as a whole. My dad works at the cemetery. My mom cleans houses. Well, she worked at a bank for the majority of my life, and then she just hated it so much that she ended up accidentally falling into cleaning houses and just kind of ran with it. But as a whole, I never had major influences of oh, my dad runs this business and my mom does this. And so, what happened is I had really, through the wedding work, built up my confidence in video production. Because what's interesting is the work that we did for weddings by 2009, 2010, was really the exact same style that I applied to the video that I did. Because basically I read Tim's book in like September of 2010. And within a few months.
4-Hour Work Week.
4-Hour Work Week. Yep, the 4-Hour Work Week. And he was having a launch party for the 4-Hour Body in December of 2010. And I saw a comment on his blog where somebody wanted a refund because they weren't 21. And he said, email Charlie at the 4-Hour Body. And I just thought, what do I have to lose?
Charlie, I know him.
Yeah, Charlie's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think he's changed a lot of people's lives ultimately as well.
He has.
And he's got a great book and everything. But so I always say that, the worst thing that's going to happen is you get a no, and you get a no when you don't ask or you don't try. So there's only opportunity when you ask and when you try. So many people think when reaching out to some big influential name is that they're not going to get it, they're not going to reply, so why even do it? But what I found is that, well, you lose nothing by sending the message. At least, like, I actually got a reply when I sent the message to Tony Robbins from his head of security. Like, that's who replied and then said, I'll forward this on to marketing. If they like it, they'll get back to you. If not, good luck. And that was it.
What was the pitch? I've been to a lot of Tony events and I crew a lot of his events, and I'm very involved in that community. I love that community. So I'm so curious about how you got into...
So it's so interesting how, again, I think things are like, I have this thing on my shirt. I think it's in reverse possibly right now, but it's not AIM. It's MIA. So, but massive imperfect action. And actually you see people take massive action. I think even Tony says that, or take action. But for me, I just combined these things to MIA, massive imperfect action, because everybody's trying to be perfect all the time. But here's the thing that's interesting. For me, when I reached out to Tim, when I reached out to Tony, it was not, I thought these people could do something for me and I could do something for them and I could get something from them. It was actually, they already gave to me. Mm-hmm. Tim's book had a big impact before I reached out. And I thought, gosh, I have this skill set of video, and if I could give this back to him and then maybe meet him, use it to kind of gain a backstage pass, that'd be awesome. And so that's what happened with Tim. He was my first one. Back to that one thing, I guess I was just part naive too. I just reached out. I just did it. There didn't even have to be a massive confidence at that point in time. It was just, I felt solid in my work. His book changed my life. I thought, what do I have to lose? I even just said, I'll do a free video, and Charlie reiterated, is it going to be free?
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is when I reached out to Tony, I offered the same kind of thing I offered to Tim. Now, interestingly enough, they were supposedly dealing with somebody with Tim who did his videos for his actual book trailers. Mm-hmm. Something wasn't quite working out. So when my email included this link to the launch party, it just caught their attention. And I believe it's part of that imperfect action. I reached out, part timing. I found if you want to reach out to really influential people, so much of it is, one, the give of being very specific about what you're going to give, but two is timing.
Yeah.
Because, I've had a buddy who paid $80,000 for books for Tim and spoke at his event. And the reality is he can't even get a hold of Tim now that that's all done.
Yeah.
Very difficult. But now if Tim's doing a book launch or something like that, it goes way up. He's able to pretty easily get out. But outside of that, it could be, he had one, he said it was 6 to 8 months before Tim got back to him.
And I've heard him speak about his availability and his accessibility on different shows.
Sure.
And how sometimes his assistant will just he'll say don't respond for a while because they're kind of working, they're in hiding, they're sowing versus reaping. And
well, that's why for anybody out there, when it comes to all this, so many people get, punched in the face with one no, or really not even a no, but a non-response. For me, I've turned non-responses to potentially they just didn't see it.
Yeah.
Until even if they did, because we all know, gosh, if you look at your own habits, the likelihood of you having seen something and not responding is very high. It's not even necessarily intentional that you do it even with your friends because it's so overloaded right now. So there's persistence. Patience and persistence are huge. I have people that I've worked with in the last year that I met 3 to 5 years ago. Right. And they just kept seeing me. We just kept staying in touch and all that kind of stuff. But the question you asked me about the video stuff is that also was my transition of mentally having this like bug, because I started to get more popular in the video space and speaking at events and different things, people reaching out to me, people saying, well, oh my God, I love your work. Like, how could I train with you or something? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, you can spend a day with me. Like, I had no idea. This was not on my radar. It wasn't really an advertised thing or anything like that. Just, they loved my work. There was really nobody in this space doing any kind of major mentoring or training at all. And so they just reached out, and I did that. And then years later, about 2014, when I had started to dive down the personal development space and coaching and training and trying to figure this all out. And I had some of these, when I started video, I had like, my mom gave me a DVD that was like somebody she cleaned a house for, and it was a wedding DVD. That was my example to like model. I couldn't go on YouTube and find 300,000 videos. But when I wanted to get into this helping, serving, coaching, mentoring, whatever words you want to give it, there was a total abundance by the time I entered into this space in 2012. And what I found was, this is what I'm so passionate about doing now with Jumpstarters, is that for me, there's so much information, there's so many different paths. And what I find a lot are doing is they're not looking at how someone is wired specifically. They're taking their blueprint, their framework, their fix your problem in a box and follow my step by step, not looking at how that person is wired. And so then what happens is that if you're not self-aware enough to understand how you're wired, then you'll go and you'll buy courses and you'll buy these things and do these things and wonder why you keep not getting any results. And so for me, I had some of the most influential names in my corner giving me advice, but I could talk to 3 people in one day and every one of them would give me different advice.
Right.
They would give me the advice that worked for them, whether it be webinars. The biggest thing was courses. I mean, everybody and their brother was pounding down my throat to take what I had done for these handful of people one-on-one and then automatically just dropping me into, you need a group program, you need to be able to scale, you need leverage, you need a course. And
that was my first thought.
Because what's that?
That was my first thought when you were talking about, people were asking me to mentor them. I'm thinking, has he put that into a course?
See, and so what's interesting is what I found, though, is that for me, I mean, I've gone down and dabbled in these paths, but for me, it wasn't providing a lot of fulfillment. So for me, I wasn't finding a lot of fulfillment in the not connecting with people. Plus, the way I'm wired personally is I need a lot, less and less as I get older and older, but I need to really experience things to be able to sell them. To confidently sell them, to confidently do it. And what was happening is I had these people who were ending up telling me year, 2 year, 3 years later that where they were today, a lot of them had $100,000 plus businesses in video production specifically.
Yeah.
But what I found was I wasn't even teaching them how to be a better videographer, which is what I was going to say way earlier that just popped back into my mind. My work between getting $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for my work to getting $30,000 did not change hardly at all. Going from working with people here in the Midwest and no big names per se to working with Tony Robbins and Tim Ferriss, not much change in my work again. Like there wasn't this, oh my gosh, my work changed, all these things changed. It was the mental game. And that's really what I found, even with working with these high achievers, is that it is the mental game. You can have all the tactics in the world, but if it's wrong for you, it won't work. Because what's right for one person isn't necessarily right for everyone. I mean, the people that I've found who love the courses and love all the online world as a whole, typically it's not that they hate people, I won't say that, but they prefer as a collective whole to not have to really have that engagement or interaction. So for them, the leveraged online courses and all that works fantastic because they get drained by having one-on-one conversations or doing things in person. Like, I mean, I won't mention names, but I have behind the scenes of some of the largest names out there. And what you see isn't what you get.
Totally.
And there's a lot who what you see is what you get. But I found that typically people don't see others as they are, they see them as themselves. And so the reality is if I love courses and I love not having to deal or communicate or Skype or Zoom with people, then that's what I'm going to sell everybody else to do. I'm not going to tell them to do the opposite of that. And so I'm the same way. I've gotten kind of bulldozed behind the scenes, I think, or when I talk to people offline about I come across as though I hate courses. I don't personally hate them. I just don't learn from them my whole life. I've never learned. I've learned from the action, from the doing, from the getting my hands dirty. I've never like gone through an entire course step by step and then been like, oh my God, there we go. Like I didn't go to college. Even when I broke $100,000 in video production, it's because I first bought an ebook actually. But I didn't get a lot. I got something out of it. But when I spent a few $1,000s in one-on-one calls with the guy who wrote that ebook, boom, that was the shift for me. And so what went wrong? Go ahead.
I just want to know, what is your framework then for jumpstarters, for any video production you're doing? Like, what does your typical day look like working with clients?
Yep. So what I found is even the video production world is let's just using this as an example, and this really goes across the board, but there's people being put into entrepreneurship or trying to start their own business that on certain levels really need to be helping someone else. They're better behind the scenes. They do not like all the other things that come with running their own business. So what I found is that, like, for me, I've been knocking on people's doors since I was 10 years old to get the money for my paper out. Like, so I had to go up to somebody's door and ask and say, hey, you owe me $15 or whatever. And so I've been doing that a long time. I've always kind of had this persuasiveness about me. It's been in my DNA, which is the big part that I wish I would have learned earlier about myself, is that I'm a people person. So you give me people tasks, and I'm 2 thumbs up and all is great. Like, this is fantastic. But you just give me a computer and hide behind it with no people, and I want to jump off a cliff. And so I did a lot of people things, but I did a lot more non-people things in building my production company. Well, I've got editors who have become self-aware enough to recognize I just love editing. Like, I don't want to have to negotiate, get the jobs, go get the shoots, shoot the jobs, hire people, and I just want to edit. And so for me, Jumpstarters is really about helping people find that sweet spot for themselves. And it's interesting. I feel like, to a degree, and I've started to bring this up, for me, I've tried to find a solution. I didn't know I was trying to find it all these years, where I hired a coach from a pretty big name thing at one point in time who I ended up, I hate to say this in a weird way, but like kind of stopped my payments out of the big thing that we had, because the guy ended up getting more and looking forward to the calls than I wasn't getting anything. I was jazzed. He's the one who came up with this thing he called Gebbs juice. He's like, I need some more Gebbs juice. And I'm like, dude, I'm paying you right now to like get help.
That's amazing.
And I'm like, you're more excited to talk to me. And so I couldn't ever find this thing that I didn't really know I was looking for, but to help me find out how I'm wired, so I know what opportunities are right for me. I know what things are wrong for me. But much like in the wedding business, I basically had to go against what I mentioned earlier with my dad. That's what people perceived as a wedding video. So why people would hire me a week before their wedding was because they saw a same-day edit. They were getting married next week, and they had no wedding video because they thought it would suck. And so right now, like, one of the tools that we use is the DISC assessment. That's one of the foundational, things that we use. But a lot of people, even I, had a really negative association as a whole, not necessarily fully with DISC, but just the assessments in general. Because again, from the way I personally learn, spitting out a PDF at me and reading it doesn't do a whole lot for me. And so in 2014, I met a guy who was at an event who was doing this debrief, he called it, on stage to the guy running the event. So he had the DISC graph and this motivators graph up on the stage and was going over it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is incredible. And I ended up getting to do a call with him. And that's what shifted everything for me, and recognizing that's kind of the first step in the process to just shine a light on whether you're a head of lettuce or you're a hammer. Like, if you're a head of lettuce trying to hammer nails, you're going to be banging that thing forever. And it eventually maybe goes somewhere, but it'll be a lot easier if you got in with like the lettuce and tomatoes and all that stuff and you're a salad, right? And so it's just a goofy analogy we use, but it's so true. A lot of people are trying to do their opposite. And for me, like, I even have had it where, I made less money when I was going so far against the grain, trying so hard to make these courses and all these other things work, that I wasn't making money really in my video production. I wasn't making money in this other thing. And it was like, what's going on? And then when I got back to that core and recognizing, wow, when I'm in my sweet spot, some people say Michael's making money when his mouth is moving. So if it's not moving, I'm not making any money. And so, the thing is when I'm doing that, I'm winning. But if I'm not, and I find myself for too long hiding behind the scenes or, not talking to people, and we've had people who they were coaches and they were doing courses. They had Facebook ads. They had all these things going. But the one element, they were following all the gurus in quotations. But the thing was, they were missing one element, and it was the live interactive coaching element, connection. Mm-hmm. And when they added that element into their business, boom, just like that, things took off. It wasn't that they needed to rearrange everything. It's just they were being told as a whole to not really connect with people, not talk to people. You can't leverage that. You can't scale it and all that. But now it's just this element that's adding in every course that she sells. It comes with live coaching. It comes with the live support. But the people she was following don't like to do that. And so as a whole, weren't really offering it and weren't telling you to offer it. It was like, maybe have 4 calls and that's it, but when they added that in, it made all the difference. And I've just found... Was it
an in-person event for everyone all together, like at the end of the course, or was it one-on-one Skype support?
I believe for her specifically?
Yeah.
For her specifically, depending on what it was either one-on-one or it was group. Okay. But she wasn't offering that at all. It's like everybody that she happened to be following as a whole, that just was not part of the model.
Yeah.
It was just sell as many courses as you can, maybe offer some email support. But even that, the amount of stuff lost in translation in email is astronomical, along with text messages and Facebook messages and all that. That's why I love audios or phone calls or
voice notes.
But again,
big fan.
Right, it's not to say those things don't work.
Right.
They don't work for me. And there's people per se like me that they don't work for. And then there's the opposites. There's the people who thrive. They travel in their RV across the US and they don't want to really have to, they don't want clients. They don't want to have to deal with people as a whole, maybe have some customer support, but that's it. But that's great. If you know that, that's why those people thrive. And somebody who's their opposite, who keeps buying, I bought tons of courses, bought all these things, yet couldn't figure out why I wasn't going through any of the courses.
Yeah.
I wasn't getting any results from any of it.
Why weren't you finishing the course?
Why?
I know you're not the only one.
Looking at my whole career, it's like I never did any of that. It was always just do the work and learn and get my hands dirty. And so for us, that DISC is the first step. And it's I have people who are basically able to read that like a language. So you get that support from a human being, not here's a 50-page document, read through it, and you'll get something like that, and it can be helpful, but it's way more helpful after you have somebody go over it with you to help you understand and then ask a few questions. Because I took the DISC with Tony back in 2012. Nothing. It didn't do anything for me. I was kind of like, oh, that sounds interesting. Okay. But you don't know what to do with it. And I think that's what I'm finding there's a big, for actual service providers, people who want to actually potentially have some semblance of clientele that you interact with, there's a huge opportunity because everything's being shoved in the automation. Don't deal with people. Don't connect. You got to leverage and scale. And I think that is super saturated right now, and people are needing that good old fashioned connection.
I do have a couple questions about the Jumpstarter. Yeah. First, I would love to hear what the Jumpstart analogy is. I read it on your site, but I'd love for my listeners to know. And then second, what does that program look like? If someone was interested in joining you for that, what does that look like exactly?
Sure, absolutely. So it started when the people were asking me, people were saying to me, I couldn't have done this without you. This was when my self-worth was really low. So I didn't really believe, I didn't do anything. Because I spent a day with these people, one day, and then we kept in touch. Mm-hmm. And it just came out of my mouth one day about a car that's perfectly intact, everything's fine with it, but you left the lights on and the battery dies. So another car comes up typically, you open both your hoods and you plug jumper cables in and you jump the car. Now, typically you don't drive down the road with that other car tethered to you with the cables tied into each other. They just go their separate ways and, it's up to you to take care of the battery from that point.
Yeah.
Now, that's an extreme case because people have said, well, do you not ever, speak to people ever again? well, no, that's just the best analogy for it, but that's what I found that I was doing. So I told my grandpa, I'm like, I'm just kind of like a jump starter. For me, it's this thing where that's when I got the best results. The problem was up front, I had no clue what in the world was going on these days in person.
Yeah.
Like they just spent the day, they went on their way, we kept in touch every once in a while to reach out, but that day made this monumental impact and transformation and shift in their life. So yes, the course thing, things like that, helped me start to recognize patterns and things that I could start to strip down. But what I found was it wasn't about saying, here's this step by step and you too will be jump started and amazing things will happen. For me, there was this in person, or at least like this, like camera to camera, face to face, not we had a big story, Ronnie, who did one of these jump starts. So I'll kind of guide you through just his story and what happened. This was at the very beginning when I, just like video, thought, how do I get somebody to pay me to spend a day with me? Well, they're not going to just pay me for a day, because I mean, oh my God, I got to add all this other stuff. I got to add weekly support calls and all this and that. But yet when I had these other people, they didn't get any of that. They just got that one day. And so the same day edit was this thing where when I wanted to do that, I thought, well, nobody's going to pay me $3,500 to just do one video. In fact, I was doing upwards of 10 to 12, and I thought, well, how do I charge more? I need to add another video.
Yeah.
But finally, I found that my couples were not watching all the other videos.
Right.
They love the same edit. I love doing it. So I stripped it all. That's the year that business also exploded with Ferriss and all those other things. And so I found that I call it the my way decision. I decided to edit, shoot, speak, dress, everything my way, instead of being this all-you-could-eat buffet like Gebb's Total Everything. And doing that, I became like this sushi chef. They're not making you a supreme pizza. They're just sitting there making you sushi. You need to go to another restaurant. So for me, I found what I did best. Interestingly enough, couldn't figure that out in the whole coaching world. I was just sitting here doing the same thing I did when I was in video, trying everything, doing what everybody else told me, not really feeling fulfilled, getting results, but not knowing what the thing was that really got the result. And so, interestingly enough, it was that day in person. And I spent the one day and knocked it out of the park. Now, we've applied this virtually now and kind of spread it out a little bit, but there's still longer, intense sessions. And when Ronnie originally went through, he got these initial support calls where he's one of the coolest success stories we've had. And he was living in his parents' back office space, barely making $15,000 or $20,000 in a year. He'd been dabbling in video for 10 years. The year before, in 2014, said he went balls to the walls and all this stuff, and he was $12,000 in debt, and he made $1,000. That was the most he'd made in all these years. And I asked him on the initial call, I said, what would you do if you didn't need money? And I think this is a thing that anybody can take away from even this entire call is everything that you're doing right now, everything you're thinking about doing, would you do it for free? If you really, I know we all need money. It's not about, some magical fairyland that we live in that we don't need money. But it's this idea that if you could step into that place and go, I never need to worry about making money again, what would I keep doing and what would I stop doing? And is everything a stop and I wouldn't even continue doing anything?
Yeah.
So what's interesting, the same day edit was that thing for me. When I asked that question, I was like, I don't even like watching 99% of the other things that when I get it done, I don't want to look at it ever again. But I loved doing the same day edit. In fact, I did the majority from 2006 through 2010 when I made the shift. Most of them were free. So I couldn't convince people to do the same day edit because it was this new thing. People first thought a wedding video sucked. Simultaneously, they're like, same day edit, why would we want it shown that day? Wouldn't it be better if you had more than 2 hours? What I didn't know in the beginning of my career is that my best work was created under that pressure, in that intense environment. And so everybody was telling me to not do it. Why are you wasting your time? You need to be charging. But if I couldn't convince them, I'm like, well, I'm not going to deprive myself of the enjoyment while simultaneously depriving this people that I can't figure out how to convince them to pay extra for it. And so I just kept doing it. And so
that's so applicable for today's market. Everyone wants everything immediately.
Everybody wants everything immediately. And the reality is, one, there's a lot of it's easy being spread out there because the people who are doing it at the top, their hardwired DNA is like go, 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 or, they have a lot of grit and, persistence built into their DNA, maybe because they were abused as a child and beat to hell and back, and they had this horrible childhood. So now they've got this like thick layer about them that they can put up with a lot of things not working out. I mean, the amount of people I've talked to who are like, I gave up because I could only hear, I can't afford that, or, no, so many times. But what I found is that I've had people who were told, well, you're worth more than that. You need to be charging $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000. Now, they're not that good. They don't have a reputation yet, and they're just getting started. So it's really hard to build the confidence and DNA into someone who doesn't have they haven't made any money, they don't have much of a portfolio, and they don't really believe in themselves. So now magically I'm going to believe in myself even though I have no work to back it up. And so I had a guy said, would you rather do 4 or 5, which is what happened with this one guy in weddings. He'd done like 3 to 5 weddings for the last like 3 years, and he was trying to charge $2,000 or more. And I said, wouldn't you rather have 30 at $1,000 up front? It'll get the word of mouth. Your name will get out there. You get to do what you supposedly say that you love doing. And so he shifted that. He went back to somebody who said no 2 weeks prior because he told him $2,000. They only said $1,000. He went back for $1,500, and she was elated. And what I found is there's this just advice being given out there that everybody's worth more. You are worth more, but at the same time, you can't do one project a year and expect that people are going to know who you are. So that thing I asked Ronnie was, what would you do if you did not need money? And he said poker runs. I didn't know what a poker run was. I thought it was something with motorcycles, and I think there is poker runs with motorcycles, but it was a boat race. And he'd filmed this local boat race in Atlanta, Georgia for like 4 years for free. Wow. Because if I could just do those things, man, I'd be happy. And so for me, helping him figure out that it's not weddings, it's not commercial work, all these things, because it's kind of like a rocking chair. A rocking chair moves back and forth, but it's not moving forward, it's not making progress. And so what's happening is if somebody tells you you need to do this, but you don't inherently believe it, then you'll go through motions and you'll move back and forth, but you won't make progress because you're trying to, make the person who told you to do this happy. The amount of people
still
that told
stay
you
where
to do
you are.
What's that?
But still stay where you are because
you're not really, your intentions and alignment are so out of whack that essentially you're just going through these motions, but your body language, the words you're using, all these things are going to sabotage every conversation that you have with somebody.
Right.
And so for me, when he was trying to do weddings and do commercial work, it wasn't working. When he went all in with, and I mean, no joke, because you hear these kind of things, but granted, mind you, 10 years of trying to where the reality is that this didn't happen overnight, although what I'm about to say kind of did. So we did a Jumpstarter Day in April of 2015. By August, he got a $50,000 contract for poker runs. And one of the things of the associations is I'm a used car salesman and I'm a slime ball. And he used to be a used car salesman. So we overcame that, but he also found the MIA thing. He goes, those 3 letters changed my life, because we found out the year before when I'd asked him, well, have you reached out to poker runs? And he said, well, I have, and they can't afford it, or it's too much, or whatever. Well, the real story was he reached out to like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
When he got the $50,000 contract, he reached out to about 200 across the United States and Canada, and there was maybe 10 or 12 that reached back out of those. And now, he's been all over the place. He's gone on a vacation in Iceland and did something, or Iceland in the UK, and he basically reached out to the BBC, MIA style, as he said, and got a little job that paid for really the trip while he was there, because he believes that, I want to do this. This is the right thing for me, and I have nothing to lose by reaching out, and I have everything to gain. But originally, we did like maybe 4 calls together. It was 2 a month, and then we did the jump. Now, it was supposed to be 2 a month for a year. We did that Jumpstarter Day. After that, I didn't hear from him for like 4 months until it was like August or September or whatever, and he got that job. And he said, those are kind of helpful, but not really. So for me, it's this intense 3 to 5 hours that we spend together with first going over the assessment of your personality and then diving deep to really get clear on exactly what's right for you, the right opportunities, the things to stop doing, the things to keep doing, the things to start doing. And essentially what I found is like right now as a whole, I can see your eyes looking at something, right? There's something, either it's your recorder or whatever, or I'm just in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm not sure. But if you're on the phone, you don't know what anybody's doing. And what I found, or if you're on Facebook Live, it shows 30, it shows 20, it shows 50, and you're getting like 3 comments. You're like, where the hell are the people at? You know, because what's happening is they're driving in their car, they're mowing their grass, they're working out, they're editing something, they're doing something, so they're not present. Because I was like, why is it when I spend time with somebody in person and say the same dang on things that I say to them on a free video, in a Facebook Live or whatever, why is it making this huge shift that it doesn't make any other time? It's because of that presence is really there. And there's a commitment, as much as it sounds like somebody's selling something, but when you don't commit any money, time, or energy, and you're just passively listening to something in the background, it has a different, profound impact when you're fully zoned in with somebody, and especially when it's in person. So we've taken that and stripped it down to really what my same day edit was, what I love, what other people love and got results from. And so for me, it's a very condensed either day in person or 2 days we do with a group in person. What I found is the one-on-one gives you a different result from a group. The group, there's more power in the family, the connection, there's other people like me. And so that serves one purpose, while simultaneously kind of more individualized coaching and support serves a different purpose.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I think that was a huge breakthrough for me, because I was trying to achieve the exact same result the exact same way one-on-one, and trying to figure out, well, how do you take that in a group? And you can do versions of things, but there's just something special about a one-on-one. But what I found, again, who am I to not do that because I love it? Like so much is shoving people into, I've done 10,000 one-on-ones in the last 10 years. So now I do group coaching. So now I'm going to tell everyone that one-on-one sucks, but that's not necessarily true. Right. Like, you can't automate filming a wedding yet, I will say, but there involves showing up and doing the work. So you could get other people to do it. I understand that fundamentally, but maybe I love doing that. And I think what's happening is you take a photographer who loves doing photos, and then you tell them that they should create a course. Now, that's not that they shouldn't. But if they get sold into this idea, but their DNA is taking those photos, they might have a much more difficult time trying to transition into this online space, because maybe they just really want to take the photos.
Yeah. And then they're stuck. Totally.
Building a business is not easy. It's not easy. And you have to have, if you have your photo business dialed in, rocking and rolling, and all is fantastic, and it's loading in the money for you, then you can divert a lot of that attention, because that thing is on autopilot to doing something else. But somebody who's has no money, no business, they're struggling and everything is not working for them, and they're trying to run a service business and an online business and all these things, they end up, I've experienced, this isn't coming from some I'm better than you all. No, this comes from even me and seeing others trying to do too many things at once, and everything ultimately just falling apart and not working. So
energy, you can see it anywhere that you look online, your site, your social media. It feels like a very consistent thread throughout your online presence. And then obviously now in person, I see that that's just who you are. So I know that bringing the energy and bringing that authentic energy to what you're doing is probably why you've been so successful. So I want to acknowledge you.
Yeah. I told a lady once who was an energy person, I said, well, energy is my differentiator.
Yeah.
And she's like, I've never looked at it that way.
100%.
Neither had I until the last 6 months.
Yeah. And coming from the Tony world, that was probably the biggest takeaway that I had from my first UPW event, was how much control we have over our energy and how big of a difference that makes. What a game changer it is. I want people to think
that I took for granted, for everybody listening, is I always thought in the video world, people were hiring me because of the videos. They needed a video. And when you really look at it, and even some of these big people brought it up to me, there's great people in New York. There's great people in LA. There's great people in San Diego. Just as talented, more talented than I am when it comes to the final product.
Mm-hmm.
But why would they fly me clear across the country to these places if the final product was the only element that mattered? And my brain kept telling me that was the only element that mattered. And that sure, people kind of like me, but that's not why. And I'm doing something that was actually, I'll mention it fine publicly. Like there was something with Lewis Howes and the Summit of Greatness last year. Kept calling me. Things weren't quite working out. And I said, Lewis, why? I want you to tell me, why do you want me? And he goes, the first thing that came out of his mouth was the word you just said, energy. He goes, every time I'm at these events, your energy is just infectious and you just bring this vibe. And he goes, I just want that to be part of our thing. And then he's like, well, you do a good video and whatever else. But he didn't say that first. He didn't say, oh, your videos are amazing, man. We just got to have this epic video there, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
It was your energy, your personality, your passion, your enthusiasm. That is amazing. And we got to have that. Oh, and you happen to make really solid videos. So it's just like, that's been a big shift for me.
Yeah.
And it applies to, so I apply that now to everything. It's just, that is my competitive edge for me. And I've developed that over the last, 10 to 12 years. Cause I have a video, maybe you can link it up. I'll give it to you afterwards. Shows me at 18 in high school, shows me at about 24 and shows me at 28. And you'd swear I was a completely different human being. Because I am really weird and really awkward in the first video, which was a senior in high school. And then I've just got this enthusiasm that you see right now.
Yeah.
But that was after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of practice and getting in front of Skype, getting in front of a video camera for YouTube videos and podcasts and in person and doing that and building that muscle. It didn't just, pop out of me because somebody said, you're a better person or you should, do this. So.
Yeah. I love that. Well, like I said, the two final questions, I want to understand what you think or what your definition of a bold life is.
Interesting. This has been something that I've been bouncing around a lot because I think that, again, one thing about success for me specifically is that success for me is just trying. I know I can achieve something if I really want it. There's so many examples I could give you of something. If I want it, I'll make it happen. If I don't really want it, I don't put the real effort in to make it happen. Success is just that continuing and trying and moving forward and that persistence, that patience that it takes to have these things that other people say they want, but really don't really even try. They just listen to podcasts or they watch videos or they buy a course and they learn, but they're so fearful of doing anything with that information because of judgment, what's going to happen, what if it doesn't work out. So for me, a bold life is ultimately just being able to do the things that light me up. I had a guy the other day, he goes, man, when I talk to you, like we were in the car and we were in California and I'm talking to him about stuff and he goes, man, but just when you talk with so much energy and passion and you're so excited. And I said, yeah, but did you notice when Fergus turned on the basketball game? And he goes, oh, yeah, you put your phone up to your face and you basically ignored him. Like, as a whole, my hack for the enthusiasm, the passion, is because I do that in areas I'm passionate about. Like, I'm excited. And so you start talking about, I have nothing against sports. I used to go to baseball games my whole life. I played soccer. I played football. I played these things all the way up. When I started my business, for whatever happened, I pretty much shut that part of my life off and still don't even have a major, it's not like, oh, I don't have time for it or don't make time. I just don't really care.
Yeah, I totally get it.
But, but the thing is like, if someone starts talking about that, you'll hear me shut up really quick. Like, I just don't have anything to say about it because I don't really care. But if it's something I'm lit up about, man, you'll hear me go on and on and on and on and on. And so that's my hack. And that's really, for me, the bold life is being able to get to do the things that I want to do regularly that light me up. And that's really my mission for others, is to understand yourself so that you get to wake up and do the things that light you up and you're not freaking running into a wall all the time. It's not about that there's no pain and there's no struggle. There always will be pain. There will be struggle. There'll be problems. There'll be challenges. But they're a lot easier to get through when you're working towards or doing something that overall you really enjoy versus something that someone else told you to do and you feel like you have to do it because of them. You'll have an incredibly difficult time getting through that.
Yep, totally. I feel like you sort of answered this with the last one, but my last question for you is, what is your why?
Well, for me, what I've come to recognize is I did this thing. People think it says the Mia challenge, which on a hashtag, it doesn't let you put M.I.A. which would stand for massive imperfect action.
I was wondering what that was on your Facebook. I was like, who's Mia?
Yeah. So anyways, life can be confusing at times. So anyways, I found that I'm doing this thing almost more for myself, but also when I originally started it and tried it out, I just recognized I had so many people say things about a smile and how much my smile specifically made a difference or brightened their day or whatever. And just overall, I have bad days. I try to never say my life is rainbows and unicorns or anything. It definitely has its struggles. In fact, moving from our apartment to our new house right now has been the biggest royal pain in the ass on planet Earth. It pushed me. But that being said, overall, I now live 2010 and 11. I couldn't say this, but now the majority of things are pretty awesome. And so smiling is pretty natural to me. But I just thought I'm going to just go out there and put a little smile photo up once a day. But what I found was, well, I'm not going to put up just a photo of myself. I don't know how long I'm going to do it or anything else. I'm just going to do it. So I started taking pictures with any unique individual that I was with. And what I found was the Tony Robbins, the Richard Branson, these celebrity people who I had photos with. There were so many more unique and special and inspiring people who were out there that I was just, I'll be honest, I was overlooking. Like I was making this facade about the primo people that people look up to. And then my wife has an aunt who's 90 who does 80 push-ups a day. Like,
that is
I can't
amazing.
even do 80 push-ups right now. Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I just started to recognize, wow, who's going to really be there for me? Now I have some pretty influential people who I, knock on wood, everything else, I've built great relationships with, and it's awesome. But the majority are people that you don't know, will never know, that are just awesome, unique, incredible, inspiring individuals who, if I had to pick up that phone and needed something, they'd be there for me. People always want to get in touch with all the celebrities and this and that, and I've been down that path, but it's the everyday, hero, if you will, that to me, a lot of people don't even know about, and they're the ones really making a difference, showing up, doing the hard work, and not getting enough credit for it. And so for me, that smile challenge started as I'm just going to put a smile photo out, to getting photos with any the waitress at IHOP. Just anybody who's just really doing something awesome and putting a smile on my face.
Yeah.
So for me, I love seeing people light up. I don't believe, like I said, that you won't struggle and you won't have pain. But if I can prevent in others some things that I just don't even think that people have to experience. Like you can still have your own struggles, your own pain, your own quote unquote suffering. But there's some things I just don't think people have to even necessarily, they can bypass. And that's through knowing themselves. And for me, I can look back at a lot. I find the silver lining in everything. So I am where I am today. I believe because of all those things. But I also believe that there's a lot that I didn't really need to go through, that had I known and understood myself better, I would have been able to bypass some of that. I would have been able to save some of the pain and struggle and maybe push it into a different direction. So for me, I love seeing people light up. I want people to experience what, as a whole, I get to now, because I was definitely pretty depressed in 2010 and 11. The girl I'm married to now, we broke up, and like I said, the business, personally and professionally, things looked good, but they were definitely, it was not good. It was pretty stressful. So,
well, I appreciate so much your transparency and your energy and all of the insights. I feel like we have so many things that the listeners can take from today's chat. So, Michael, thank you so much. It was really fun getting to meet you.
Appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you to Michael for joining us on today's show. If you want to learn how you too can gain access to mentors, influential clients, partners, podcast interviews, and more, then check out my free influencer training by visiting theboldlifemovement.com/free. In this free 5-day training, I break down exactly how I've been able to connect with some of the world's top authors, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. And it's nothing that you can't do too. Spoiler alert, it will require some bold action, but I have total faith that you can do it. So go ahead and check out my free training at theboldlifemovement.com/free. That's Free. And I will catch you all next week.